Atención. Están despedidos.
¿Bancarrota?
Espero que tenga suerte en el futuro.
Esta no es la vida que te prometí, ni mucho menos. Chicas, creo que tengo una idea.
I'm a father of 2 kids. Nothing brings me more joy than going for a walk, swimming in the beach with my kids. There are seemingly simple things that could happen at all time. Those miraculous things when we open our eyes and we really just decide to be present, for me, the things that I cherish the most. Simple, really. Cooking together, eating together, drinking together. Okay, it's getting less simple with the drinking, but and the wishing machine for me, every time it's my birthday, I have to make a wish. It's always about my kids. I think, I don't care who you are, every parent around the world, the first thing they wish for is for their kids. In some ways, I think I feel more comfortable singing live. There is certainly a pressure to, let's say when I did Les Miserables, because you can't get sick. Every day, that day you sing that song, I would wake up, I'd look at the pillow, and I think when I put my head back down on that pillow tonight, I will never sing that song again, potentially, you know. I had to deliver on that day. I find the recording studio, have found the recording studio before this uncomfortable, not enjoyable. I didn't like listening to myself, like most people on the planet. You're like, oh. There was something about singing on stage where I could feel free, just be in the character. And in that sound booth, I started to feel self-conscious. So I just started drinking during the night. I did have a couple of glasses of wine. Someone said, yeah, have a couple, just relax a little bit. I was like, okay. But I just spent more time there. And Justin and Benj, who were the writers on this, and I absolutely love their music. And these guys are, I'm not sure if you know, they won the Oscar for La La Land. They just were nominated for 3 Grammy Awards. Dear Evan Hansen, their musical, just won the Tony Award. They are extremely brilliant and good friends of mine. And we just spent hours and hours and hours to the point where I really enjoyed it. It's funny, as I'm telling you this, it was the same for me with horse riding. Like, I had to ride a horse in Australia, the movie, and I was a little frightened of riding a horse. I never rode when I was young. And it took me probably 3 months, honestly, before I felt that feeling of freedom and joy and confidence. And it's a little bit like that with this. And this was a different style of singing than I'd done. So I got a new singing teacher. Justin and Benj asked me to get a new teacher. I spent 2 years with that teacher preparing for this music, which is a little more pop than just sort of Broadway. Started with this project in 2009, 7.5 years ago. At that point, I had done 5 musicals on stage, each one for about a year. So I'd spent 5 years of my career singing and dancing on stage. I had hosted the Oscars where I'd sung and danced, but I'd never done it on film. So I really wanted to do that. At the time, it had been 23 years since original movie musical had been greenlit in Hollywood. So I really wasn't sure it was going to happen, but that was the impetus. And I do believe that musicals that have big stories, epic stories, larger-than-life characters, the transition from spoken word into song seems more natural, seems easier. P.T. Barnum was the perfect character for that. So that's how this character came to be. And I had kind of done similar types of characters, the larger-than-life, full of imagination, cheeky, charming kind of characters like Barnum on stage, but I hadn't done it on film. That's why I wanted to do it. Michael Gracie, the director, happens to be Australian, but I met him on a commercial shoot 8 years ago, and he's one of the most successful commercial directors and music video directors, and he has a brilliant way, particularly with music and dance. And I said to him at the very last day of the shoot, we should do a movie together. You should do a movie. And I'll never forget it. He turned to me and goes, yeah, whatever, Jackman. And I said, oh, fine. If you don't want to do a movie, no problem. And he said, no. He goes, listen, Every commercial I've ever done for 15 years, on the last day, the actor always says, let's do a movie together. And so I ring my mum for the first 5 years telling him, oh, you know, I'm doing a movie with George Clooney, I'm doing a movie with blah, blah, blah. And of course, the movie never happens. So now I've learned that that's just something you actors say and you don't really mean it. Well, 2 weeks later, I actually sent him a script for Showman, and he rang me up. He was like, oh, you meant it. So I just knew he had it in him. He's actually, of all the people involved in this film, more of the Barnum than anybody. His confidence, his will for this movie to happen, he pitched this movie 1,000 times to different people, is the reason it got made. I love Spain. I was first here when I was 18, in the middle of summer. I had no money, I remember. I was backpacking. Yes, I was one of those annoying backpackers. That was me. And I fell in love with it, with the food, with the people, with the lifestyle. Somehow you guys have a way of living life. I always feel like people are really living their life. I go to some places and I feel like they're living to work, and I feel like you guys sort of work to live. And food, all the things I love. Food, music, dance. The Prado Museum is my favorite museum in the world. The people, everything about it. So the suckling pig, everything is so good here. I think the most challenging was the last scene. It's a song called From Now On. He finds some redemption in his newfound family, which builds into song and a jubilant dance. And then, now a scene like that would happen in many movies. It's not an unusual scene. But to go from that quite broken place into what was a very difficult dance and a difficult song to sing is the kind of challenge I love. I think musicals have an opportunity when they really open your heart, to make you smile, to make you sing, to make you dance, make you cry. And that song in particular was the most challenging on that front. It's a really good question, because when we started 7 years ago, it was an important theme in the movie, not the most important. It was more, when we began, it was more a story of the birth of show business and this character who believed in imagination and talent and hard work, and that kind of birth of the modern America. But really, what came more to the fore, and I think it is because of what is going on in the world today, is this idea of tolerance and inclusiveness, and the way Barnum, really in real life, by the way, brought these people who had been completely ostracized from society to not only out into the open, not only famous, but some of the most loved people on the planet. And he was probably the first to say what makes you different makes you special. And of course, it's easy to see in our political environment today. You don't only see it in America. I see it in my home country of Australia. I see it all across Europe. I see it in England. I see this retreat into isolationism, which hopefully, for my personal politics, isn't going to be forever. But I think whenever those decisions are made out of fear, we should question it. And what Barnum and what this movie is trying to say is, let's spend our energy not in building walls, but in understanding other people. And actually, those differences are our strength. But beyond the obvious political connections, it's not dissimilar to X-Men, the theme of X-Men. It's actually something that almost every teenager, and hopefully by the time we're in our 20s, we grow out of it. But this idea that we have to fit some stereotype of what is cool, what is good looking, what is successful, what is socially sort of acceptable, it may not be true to ourselves. The idea of just being who you are, owning who you are, is enough. That is where our energy should be. So I think it is a very, very important message, not just now, always. Singing in the Rain, to me, is an almost perfect movie. Satirical, funny, sharp. The dancing is unbelievable. Gene Kelly used to spend 8 weeks rehearsal on every number. Debbie Reynolds told stories of her feet bleeding in order to have that complete freedom and joy during it. I just watched Donald O'Connor singing Make 'Em Laugh, that great song. And if you haven't seen that recently, watch it. To me, it is almost perfect. If I could have been in any musical in history, Singing in the Rain is it. Oh, I think the issue of family is not something of fashion. I think that has always been the case. I think it is difficult now. I can just say from my perspective, and not because I'm in show business. I think modern day life, there are many, many demands. Many people have to commute further. Our kids' schedules seem to be more packed than ever. There seem a lot. It's weird. We seem to have more time-saving devices than ever before in history, and yet we seem to struggle to find time more than ever. So something's gone awry. But I think in life, I've always believed you have to be proactive about your priorities. I don't judge anyone's priorities. If someone says my priority is my career, good for you, whatever you want it to be. For me, my priority is my family. I grew up particularly living with my father, where the sacrifices I saw him make were Herculean, extraordinary. And I and my wife and I, when we got married, we said, okay, the marriage comes first. We do whatever's good for the marriage. And of course, when we had kids, the family comes first. We do whatever's good. So that's how we approach every crossroad, pretty much. We don't always get it right. Sometimes we get it wrong. Unfortunately, both my wife and I have what we call FOMO. Have you ever heard of FOMO? Fear of missing out. We're these kids who didn't there's a party here and a party there. I want to go to both. We're naturally like that. So sometimes we overbook, but generally we try to just do whatever works best for our family. I can improve on so much, let me tell you. I am the worst handyman in the world. Charisse, tell me in Spanish, how do you say handyman? Manitas. Terrible. And that goes from when I was growing up, if you wanted to, I can change a light globe, but I'm sorry if the cameras or the sound desk or your phone or computer, anything here, I'm out, right? So terrible. I hate to say it. I'm an okay cook. I love cooking. Sorry. But I love food. And I didn't get my first job until I was 26, so I couldn't afford to go to a restaurant until I was 26, so I had to learn how to cook. I constantly, what I love about acting, I feel I have this unbelievable opportunity to learn. I think the key to life is curiosity, wanting to learn something new, constantly pushing yourself in a way into uncomfortable areas to try. I mean, honestly, when I started singing, I completely felt like a fraud. I wasn't. Dancing may have come a little more naturally to me, but I constantly wanted to learn. I've had lessons now for 20 years. I still have an acting coach. I always feel that you can improve, and actually it's a duty, not just me as an actor. I think in life, as a parent, as a husband, if you ever feel like, yeah, I got it, there's nothing more for me to learn, I feel like you're stopping living. So in terms of the business, I am loving acting more than ever, and I look back at this year, I am incredibly grateful that the two projects I was involved in are things that I'm really proud of. Logan and The Greatest Showman could not be more opposite. And both things I was involved with from the very beginning, from the inception, from the writing of it. I was really involved. I would be a terrible director. I'm way too indecisive. Actors would hate working with me, and I'm smart enough to know that. So I don't want to direct right now. No. But I can pretend to be. I think, if I'm honest, on stage, I think I could keep pace with Barnum. There's some great stories of Barnum. He once had I think it was a juggler, some kind of juggler/contortionist who was African American, and he was an alcoholic. And so about 1 in every 3 performances, he wouldn't turn up. So Barnum used to just literally go and put boot polish on his face and go out there and start juggling and telling jokes and get away with it. So he had guts, and he could get up there on stage. But the title really, and Barnum's legacy really, is about the creation of a show. No one knew an audience better than Barnum. He had street smarts. He knew what people wanted. He was one of the first people to start a lottery. This was one of his first businesses. He actually got shut down by the police. He once sold lottery tickets or tickets for a prize of 500 used bottles, glass bottles. And the guy says, what are you doing? No one wants 500 bottles. And he says, people care more about winning than the prize itself. So he just had a sense of what makes people tick, what audiences want. He also had this unbelievable ability to turn lemons into lemonade. So you see it in the movie. That is a true story about the review. It's the worst review I have ever read in my life, calling him a criminal, saying that his show was degrading him, calling it a circus. And a circus was about the worst thing you could write about something. And he ended up reprinting that review in every paper in New York because he understood there's no such thing as bad publicity. He was a visionary. He was a disruptor. I think of him as a Steve Jobs, as an Elon Musk. He saw the world in a completely different way and actually changed it forever, particularly the world of marketing. I'll just leave you with one quote that I read 2 days ago about Barnum. He said, without promotion, something terrible will happen. Nothing. My experience, particularly at Fox, is that more risks are being taken right now because there is an understanding that the art form of film has to constantly be reinventing, challenging itself, taking risks, and giving audiences something they haven't seen in a while. So when the studio greenlit this movie, it had been 23 years since any studio had ever said this was a good idea to have an original movie musical. There was no La La Land at the time, so there was no evidence to Emma Watts or Jim Giannopoulos at the time, now Stacey Snider. There was no evidence that this would be successful. This is a risk. But if you take a little step back, I think this is one of the most exciting times, actually, for our business. I understand what you're saying about film, and in some ways you can see it's becoming narrower. Obviously, superhero movies, which I'm part of, I was part of, sequels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if we just take a little step back and we look at what's going on in TV, we look at some of the bold things that are happening in the streaming, we look at the way we're watching things, it is a revolution. Look at YouTube, you look at the way people are watching things. It is actually, for creators of content, for creative people, this is the golden age. This is the age where more than ever, creators are being given a blank canvas. There's many, many places saying, go for it. Make what you want to make. Take bold choices. And actually, it's kind of astonishing what is going on, particularly in other areas of TV. And I think film is responding because they realize that they have to. And I think it's good. I think it's good. I have been really so moved by the courage of those people who have come forward to speak. I cannot imagine the sense of shame, humiliation, the mixed emotions, anger that must be experienced with this. The longer it goes on before you get to speak, the harder it must be. I think it is a great opportunity, not just in our business, not just in America, across the world. I don't care if you're a man or woman, if you're young, you're old. I don't care if you're a builder, a politician, an actor, a journalist. There is no business for any of that kind of abuse of power. And I think it's a reckoning that needed to happen. I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to really seriously address how we create an environment for people to do their best in whatever field they're in. And I have always been moved by Nelson Mandela. To me, when I read his book and when I was younger, watching him, when he came out of prison after 27 years, after living under apartheid, which really ripped apart his family and his life, the first thing he did as president was have the Truth and Reconciliation hearings. This had never, I don't think, ever been done before in history. He created an atmosphere where victims and perpetrators had a chance to talk openly, to allow all the poison to come out and heal. And because of that, that country was able to transition without a civil war, which is kind of extraordinary. So it's a great example. Nelson Mandela is a great example of how we can take this into, not make it just something that we read in the tabloids, but that we seriously address around the world. And I firmly believe that this is a tipping point. I really do believe things are going to change. I think that is being addressed. I think you're seeing more women, and there was an imbalance, for sure. I think it's something that, of course, we're very visible as an industry. I think it exists in many industries, and I do think there is a change. And like anything, we were talking a little bit before about perhaps a shift to isolationism around the world. I always try to take a wide view of things, a long-term view of history. Things are moving so fast, and change is always frightening for many people, and it is often messy. And I think patience is something that, even when there's urgency, just a sense of distance and calm and patience as we move, and understanding as we move through. Again, that's what Nelson Mandela did. So when he first came to power, he promised every person who had had a job in the government that they would still have their job, because they assumed they would just be kicked out. He just understood that there needed to be understanding, and things needed to change with that understanding. So I'm thrilled there's more women directing. My first job was with a woman director, and that was the first time I ever got a job, and I'm so grateful to Kate Woods, and also because I met my wife on that job. So, but for many reasons, I think there needs to be more women directing, more women producing. I work at a studio right now, Fox, that has been run predominantly by women. And it's a really, really exciting time. I think things are changing.
Para hacer algo nuevo hay que romper con lo convencional.
No puedo dejarlo todo y unirme al circo.
¿Por qué no? Tienes talento para el show business.
¿El show business?
Ajá.
Nunca lo había oído.
Se me acaba de ocurrir.